Radio Bypass, bringing you rock and roll music that deserves to be heard. Discover new bands. Here's some old favorites on Radio Bypass.
Hey guys, I'm so happy to welcome back to Radio Bypass. Our good friend, Mr. Mike Tramp, is here with us today. How you doing, Mike?
Thank you for having me. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you. Lots happened since the last time you and I spoke. Second time around was just about a month or so shy of coming out into the world that at the time none of us knew how to navigate because it was COVID in full bloom. But since these last 5 years, or during these last 5 years, you've been a busy guy in spite of all that, with many records released, including, I believe, 2 in your native Danish language, in addition to what you're kind of into right now, the last 3 years or so, is the revisiting of your White Lion catalog. You had Songs of White Lion, then a volume 2, and now we're about a month away from a volume 3.
That's correct.
They've been great. It's great hearing this material with today's sound, you know, the way recordings sound today. Sometimes when I go back and listen to various things from the 80s and the early 90s, so compared to how things sound today, sometimes it's got a very, depending on the album, it has a very thin sound to it, you know?
I agree with you, Ralph. I agree with you. And I mean, if I had no other reason to record these songs over again, I could use that reason. Yeah, I mean, I think that both the 60s and the 70s are surviving better into the future than the 80s. The 80s, of course, you know, digital got introduced and a lot of other different things. I can't really pinpoint it, but there's many times the sound is not as friendly going into the future as it could have been. So
Right.
obviously that's one of the first things you do when you get to re-record something you once did, is correct that.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's a lot of my favorites, including bands I was involved with, that I'd love to be able to hear the music redone with today's technology.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, it's funny though, because at the time it all sounded great. You come out of a studio, oh, this sounds great.
Of course it did.
And now
Yeah,
you compare it to today's stuff, and it's like, wow, there's like a whole dynamic presence that doesn't seem to be there on a lot of those recordings anymore.
I know. More reverb, more snare drum.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, it's been great. I'm glad you're getting a chance to do this, and it's been fun hearing, you know, modern takes on this material. But one big question that I have is, so volume 3 is coming out September 19th. So like I said, we're about a month away from the release of that. And it's been stated that this is going to probably be the last one, that you're calling this a trilogy. And when I read that, I thought to myself, well, gosh, in the initial run of White Lion, we had 4 albums. Why not a volume 4? Why are you choosing a trilogy?
Yeah, I mean, and I might just eat my own hat from that. I mean, first of all, when I recorded the first album, I only thought it was going to be one album.
Right.
And it was really just a lot to do with that. I was trying to find my place, that when I was out there touring, you were mentioning second time around, and Mike Tramp being a solo artist and being out there with his own band and not playing 80s hard rock. This kept getting added to the poster, where sometimes, regardless if it was like Mike Tramp from White Lion would overpower the poster. And
Right.
it's almost like nothing else mattered on the poster. And I was trying to deal with that. And then I finally said, you know what? If this is what they're calling me back for, let me also combine it with how I sound today.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was 26 when I recorded the Pride album, and next year I'll be 65. I a lot of stuff has changed in that way, and my sound and not just can I not sing like that anymore, not do I want to sing or act like that before. I want as much as we're doing the songs close to note for note, we're also not doing them note for note. We are bringing them, like you mentioned yourself in your introduction here, we're bringing them in so a grown-up man today can actually stand listening to these songs, and also with me now singing these songs in a lower key, just feels more at home and natural that this is a grown man singing these songs, and it all fits well with the live show, and so. I had to make a version that fitted, the early 20s.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense for sure. Yeah.
At least it does to me.
No, it does. And like we talked about, not only the sonic value in redoing these songs, but also, as you said, you're not singing the same way that you were then. And probably because years go by, you get better, because I think your vocal performance on these, everything's just sharp. If that's, I don't even know if that's exactly the phrase I'm looking for, but all the diction, the clarity of your vocal, is very strong on these last releases, I think, where it makes the songs more, not only because of the dynamics that we talked about with the recording, but just the way you approach them and the way you're singing them. To me, they pack more of a punch. They have more power.
I mean, the thing is, it's a massive dilemma. Not every artist have it, but to me, sometimes it can actually take years for me to become one with my own song that I've written. I mean, the difference between when you stand in the studio, a lot of times you're singing a song that really isn't that old. You've written it maybe a couple months before, you maybe wrote it the week before or a year before. By the time you take that song onto the stage and you don't have the lyric sheet anymore, you are now becoming one with the song. You have a completely different freedom than when you stand completely, sterilized and motionless in the studio, and trying to sing right on the beat, and you have no soul and you have no groove and you have no feel because you just try to make it so perfect. And it's not until later on when you're so free with the song live that you really start enjoying it. So going in and singing these songs again without a lyric sheet, I have so much freedom, and I can go with the melody line where I want to go. I can stretch the words. I can land on a downbeat instead of an upbeat. It is something that I wish I was able to do when I recorded even my solo albums the first time. It's just I never really have a chance to sing the songs long enough. It happens on the Pride album in a different way, because the Pride album had been on a live show for over a year and a half. So we had played those songs in the clubs many, many, many times. And that's really when you get to feel the freedom and learn the songs. But I've always said to myself, man, if I could go on a tour without anybody knowing that I was playing new songs, I would go out and play the next album live before I go in and record it.
Right. Well, I think that is usually, at least for everybody's first album, that's usually the way it is.
That is exactly what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying, because now you have a deep emotional connection to the material, and yeah, I get what you're saying, where it's in you, where if you're writing brand new stuff and you're immediately recording it, you haven't really had that opportunity. I get what you're saying. Haven't had that opportunity to live with it and really feel it. And I guess that does change the dynamic some, doesn't it? Never really thought about that.
No, and you know what? Of course, we also did not think about it before looking back many, many years later. And you wonder sometimes, and I keep saying and in all the interviews, you always hear about Van Halen just going in and doing a live show on the first album, and sometimes even the second album too, and just Eddie Van Halen just doing the guitar solos the way he did them live without thinking that there's a red light blinking and it says now you're recording, so now you have to be serious, and it's one of the worst things that can be done. There are some, and I'm sure that you have a similar favorite bands like myself from the '60s and the '70s. Some of the live albums are just way better than the studio albums.
Oh, absolutely. Like
It's
Bob
just the way it
Seger.
is. Those bands are just so much better live than they were in the
So much.
studio.
Yeah. Bob Seger, I hadn't liked much of anything until Live Bullet came out. And then I heard that and I'm like, this is a band on fire. This is freaking awesome. And it changed
Listen,
the whole perception of him that I had had up to that point. Ted Nugent, same thing. His live album opened the map for me on him more so than the studio record. So yeah, you're right about that.
just throw on Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous. I mean, they've never been able to capture that sound on record than they did on that live album.
Yeah, yeah. Like the old saying goes, it's hard to get lightning in a bottle, right? So, but for you now, being that you're on volume three, what's it been like? Aside from that, has it been going back and revisiting all these things? Obviously, it's going to take you back to a different time in your life and everything. And we're the same age. So, I reflect back every once in a while. I mostly look forward, but every once in a while, you got to peek backwards too, right? You look in the rearview mirror once in a while, but mostly you stare out the windshield. So, has it been like, emotional for you going back and recording any of these tunes and thinking back to the original time frame when they were done?
Yeah, I mean you're right on there. I mean there are definitely days where you feel the opposite of other days. There are days when you go in there knowing you're doing a project that has to be delivered at a certain day and have to be kept under budget.
Hmm.
Those are the days you go in and you know exactly that today you're doing Fight to Survive or this song, and you know that song in your sleeve, and you've already arranged it, and we're not really going to experiment with it. We're just going to get a good takedown. And then there's days, for example, when I start singing the songs and I just approach the song like I'm singing it the first time, and it's a brand new song, but still a song that I'm somehow familiar with because I know the lyrics inside my head, but I want to try to come in from a different angle. And I have never had any problems telling both journalists and a live audience or even people that admired me about how much I have struggled myself with trying to find the groove and the vibe, and sometimes when I start, I felt I'd written a great song, but then when I started singing, it didn't exactly light my fire, and I had to search and find where is it that I'm not hitting it, because I believe in the melody, I got the lyrics down, and so but my live performance recording this track is not happening. And there are some tracks I've had to wait 35 years to redo to feel that way. And it's just a fact, man. Yes, of course, fans will come and say, oh, I really love that first version, and they're entitled to that. But as an artist, I'm also entitled to say, well, you know what? I prefer the second version.
Sure, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And like, to me, listening to this stuff, I'm both ways, right? Because I still like what it was and what I, as a young guy, got me interested in White Lion to begin with, but I also really enjoy the new versions too. So for me, they're both they both have an equal value to me and for my ears. And let's talk a little bit about the songs that are included now on Volume Three. You released. I guess I want to start with this just because I thought it was so interesting. So you've released two videos, two singles so far leading into the album, but I want to start with the most recent one, which was "Fight to Survive." So that video which I normally don't watch videos too much ahead of albums before I hear a whole album, but in this case I did because I'd listened to the single a few times anyway, and I went and checked out the video, and it's all AI, and but still had to be thought out how to make that happen. And then I saw Eddie Trunk posting something about his piece that he didn't know what it was going to be used for. And I know your son in the past on videos that you've done has been involved in making videos with you. So I'm just curious, where did this all come from? What was the concept and how did you feel about trying AI?
Well, I mean, let's start from behind. I mean, the thing is the same thing with recording today. I mean, these days, recording volume 3 is what White Lion spent just on the first 3 days getting the drum sound on Main Attraction. That's how, that money we spent just on those first 3 days in 91 is what it cost to record, volume 3.
Crazy.
The Radar Love video off the Big Game album 1989 cost $500,000. That's an entire movie. Now these days, you have to come up with anything that can help you. Your son doing the video while you're on the road and sitting there on a laptop in the hotel room together with dad and going, hey dad, I need to film you just down the street, and of course now we have the AI within the video technology that it simply just gives us an option. I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be doing this if we were in the old world and we had these budgets and we could do these kind of things. We wouldn't be doing them. And of course, we will never be using AI going into the music. It's just it's not going to happen. But when there is this technology right now, and basically you have run out of things to do. I mean, there's nothing. How many fucking versions have they done of King Kong, and they keep redoing this it's just the way it is. So what do you have? You're re-recording a song from 1984. You're going to have to do some sort of promotional video. You're not really a band. So you're not going to go into like some sort of studio and start and doing, rock outs like you and Judas Priest and things like that, and sit and laugh at yourself because it's just a joke. So I came up with this thing that says, you know what? I have an idea about how we're going to do. I want to put the nostalgia in there. I want to tip my hat to the good old days of New York, of how the whole story about Fight to Survive. And my friend Michael, who's the guy that's going to sit and put all this together, says, listen, and we're going to do The Warriors. The movie The Warriors is going to be this young rock band that's getting lost in Manhattan and totally out of place, and they're going to have to make their way back to Brooklyn. And along the way, they're going to run into different things. And then we came up, says, we need to portray Manhattan. The Ramones were always around on streets at night. The New York Dolls, Twisted Sister. The Ritz. Crazy 80 was a record store. Revisiting the statue of 34th Street at the library where I shot the album cover for Fight to Survive, and right. All this kind of stuff. And every day when he would send me a new clip from what I've told him, going to Manny's Music on 48th Street. I was on 48th Street a half a year ago. There's not a single record, a guitar shop. There used to be all the guitar shops in New York was on 48th Street. So right. It's going back and saying, listen, we have not forgotten where we came from and what was great about all this thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And I saw, Club L'Amour, which of course played a big part of White Lion's early history and everything. But I just thought it was so interesting because this AI stuff,
it's scary.
It's scary. And I use it a little bit here and there for things that I have to do. And it kind of freaks me out, to be honest with you. Like you said, it's scary. But when I saw the video, I'm like, okay, this is really really cool because I feel like it is sort of telling White Lion's early story. I feel like you did that, but just to come up with the concept, and even with AI's help, still there has to be a lot to putting that together and to get it all structured the way it is. I just think you did a fantastic job with
Yeah,
it.
no, I appreciate that. I enjoy that too. I mean, a lot of times it's not that I want to be a movie director and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes a movie director has much more to do with fucking getting the budget together. I want to same thing with recording an album. I want to be free to be creative. I
Right.
mean, right now, and again, I'm telling your viewers and your listeners the God honest truth. I'm fighting a daily mood change in dealing with going out and playing White Lion songs and being the band leader, being the manager, being the travel agent, being the bank, being all of those things, and then at the end of the day, having to be the guy who also goes out and sing the songs and shakes his ass. In White Lion, I only did the last part.
Right.
So there's all these different hats you have to wear,
Hmm.
and it does drain you. But on a creative side of it, same thing, both with writing the songs and lyric wise, and also now dealing with this visual. I have so many ideas that I like to see come true, and see what we can do with it. And now we're in the world that it just allows that. So, I looked at it as much as I wanted to be stubborn. And as like I said to you early on, I mean, I will never let it enter, the creation of music and things like that, because that comes from my voice and my acoustic guitar and when I sit and play that.
Right.
But if you're going out and doing a street fight and the guy's showing up with a machine gun, you're not going to come out with a baseball bat. You're going to have to come out with an equal weapon that matches that. So when the rest of the industry and the rest of the world is working on that level and taking advantage of the modern tools that these geniuses are creating for us, it's very tough to say, I'm just going to use a pencil and a paper,
Right.
and the rest is using Chat GBT. It's just the way it is.
Right. Right. No, I get it. I get it. I know we have to embrace it. Um, so I mean, obviously it makes perfect sense, but, and then I wanted to talk about, the first single that was released from the upcoming album was Cherokee. And, I know that was one of your first songs that you and Vito wrote together, right?
Yeah.
And so I know there was a quote about you feeling how much you love that song and that was kind of amazing re-recording it. Can you expound on that, what you were feeling redoing that
Yeah,
tune?
I mean, yeah, and it's a song that very early on in our career disappeared from our live show and never ever showed up again. And I play a lot of shows around the world, and people have been asking for that song. And so going back and revisiting it and going back and singing it again and just tidying up a few things in the drum beat and getting a little bit tighter was a true reward. Getting the song to exactly where I wanted the song, and now the song is getting back into the live show, and it'll be really refreshing singing that song that I've not sung for over 35 years.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's great. And then I noticed on this record too, we've got quite a few tracks from the Big Game album. Um, and I was just wondering, is there any of these like you did If My Mind Is Evil, which is a song I always really liked a lot, Dirty Women? Do you have a favorite from that album that is included on the new Volume 3?
Well, I mean, that is what one of those things that's because I mean, we didn't really get into it this time around, but because the recording of Big Game and the writing of Big Game became at such a wrong time and under so much pressure time wise that Vito and I never really got a chance to live with these songs and rewrite them and demo them and listen back and play them through in rehearsal. We went straight into the studio with
Right
the
off of a
songs we
tour.
had written in such a short time and recorded it, that for the last 30 years we've been listening to something we wanted to change. And like I say, If My Mind Is Evil was a must getting that back on, and I'm happy there. And even going in and redoing, adding one more time Radar Love, which is, of course, the only song that is not our own song. And then deciding this time to say that we wanted to do the 100% Golden Earring version,
Hmm.
and not sort of where White Lion sort of took it. So we're going back and going back into early 70s. So we're being almost note for note true to the Golden Earring version like that. And I really, really like that version.
Awesome, awesome. I have not gotten to hear that yet, so I'm looking forward to hearing that. Um, and then what else was I wanting to ask you about Volume Three? I guess that's really it. My biggest question was just to just keep thinking in my head, why not a Volume Four? That's been the thing that keeps popping into my head all the time, just to keep it evened out.
It's actually going to be called Volume 4 because you asked for it.
I like it. And then you've been doing a lot of live dates. That's all
Yeah,
been going well for you, from what I can gather, what I see online.
yeah.
And you're going to be heading back out. You're doing Rocklahoma at the end of this month, October, or
Definitely. I mean,
August 31st.
it's of course it's old school. It's one of those things they still have not been able to take away from us. The live show, where a band and fans join together and kind of get into a little bit of groove and enjoying what's left of rock and roll.
Hmm. Yeah, what's left indeed. All these deaths lately of a lot of, I'm sure your heroes too, from when we were young.
Of course,
Uh,
yeah, of
you
course,
know,
man, of
been,
course.
just been so heartbreaking.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So I agree with you. What's left, and I'm just glad that there's promoters out there that'll still book you and get you out there, so that those of us that
So am
want to hear
I.
you live can still hear you.
So am I. So am I.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it's got to be so strange, because your career began really when everything was really firing on all cylinders. There truly was this big machine, this big record business, and there was paths, clear paths that you would follow and things. Now these last, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years, it's been so just all over the place and just
Yeah,
finding your way.
yeah.
In some respects, even though you had the big success that you had at that time, still, I'm sure navigating the last 20 or 30 years, it's been a whole new thing again, almost like
Yeah.
being a fresh musician again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier on a daily occurrence, you're questioning yourself
Hmm.
if you want to do it, how you should do it, why it's not like it was, and why this and why that. It's it's definitely a mental game of how to like you say, navigate through it all, because it's a massive maze,
Hmm.
and lots of time it makes no sense.
Right. Right.
I can't keep on making right turns.
I get it. But what keeps you motivated, though? I mean, you still want to be an artist, obviously. So, in spite of the way things are, there's still some inner fire in you that
Yeah, no,
keeps
I
you
mean
going.
I mean the question is the motivation. The thing is that next year I've now been doing this for 50 years, and it is the only thing that I have done that has paid my rent. That's one thing. I have enjoyed the whole run, and I'm a person that enjoyed the chase much better than the catch. A lot of people will say, man, in the early White Lion years, before we became sort of successful, when we still were traveling, and it was, something, no dressing rooms, getting thrown up on stage without sound check. the band was like a fist.
Hmm.
And as we got closer to the success, we just became like four individual fingers that once in a while were trying to create a fist.
Hmm.
So I enjoy the creative process. I do feel that I have a lot of songs still in me. If people ever get to hear those songs because it's so limited of how you get to release it is a different story. But I know they're in me, and I do love, writing them and recording them and creating them, and I also love being together with the people I play. I do miss a lot of how it used to be when we had more time in the studio, that we could feel that as the day went along, something was slowly brewing.
Hmm.
And it might take 3 or 4 days for it to finalize itself, but in that during that process, there were a lot of special moments going through, and that's completely gone now.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
it arrives in an email.
Right. Yep. And stems and all that. Yep. Yeah, no, you're right. It is different. Well, I'm glad to hear you say though what you just said, because that was going to be one of my questions as we get to the end here is, will we see new Mike Tramp original music down the pike? And it sounds like we might. I'm talking about brand new songs that we haven't heard before.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
these are still Mike Tramp songs, but you know what I mean, brand new
yeah,
stuff.
no, no. I'm sitting right now in my studio, and if and I'm looking at the big screen, and I was just listening to one of the songs that is from my next solo album, and the question is just really, now that I've done 3 hard rock album, which of course is a re-recording of White Lion, and I have 16 solo albums as how Mike Tramp sounds as a solo artist.
Right.
Where am I going with it? Because when I go out on stage, I'm gonna be going out there as White Lion, and I will be playing the classic White Lion songs. If I get, I do get to do a lot of solo shows with just my acoustic guitar, where I mix it up with my solo albums and some classic White Lion interpreted, in unplugged version. So it's one of those things, like recording a new hard rock album and never going out and playing these songs live is one thing. Writing a new hard
You keep talking. I just gotta let this
Okay,
thought out.
writing a new hard rock album is not the same as writing a Mike Tramp solo album, because hard rock is sort of based around a serious guitar.
Hmm.
And so for me to planning to write a new hard rock album as Mike Tramp, I will need to bring in a bit of a team of people that I want to write those songs with and how I want them to sound, because they're not going to end up sounding like White Lion.
Hmm.
I can't sit and wait in 2026.
Right.
So I have a few things on my list of how I could do it. A concept album, more of a project, so it gives you a little bit more freedom. If you suddenly says, well, the next hard rock album is kind of going to be a little bit more like Pink Floyd meets Van Halen, but it's not a band. It's an album. It's a musical composition of people you're joined up with, to
Mhm.
just wanting to do it for the love of songwriting and music. And
Right.
you're never going to be playing the songs live.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So
What's
all
up?
that stuff is already on the burner. It's just really a matter of because at the end of the day, how do you release it? And you put a lot of hard work into it, and it just comes out and it dies the next day. It's then you got to deal with that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of sad. Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. So everybody start buying physical stuff. Don't just stream stuff. I keep saying that.
Yeah, no, no, no. It is. I mean, because to me, I love when the vinyl arrives. My when I get my promo copies and I'm sit with the physical vinyl, I says, yeah, this is my new album. I mean, it feels.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, and as a music fan, I love having all the
Of course.
I still end up doing a lot of CDs, but I do get the vinyl now and again too, which is fun because I never did get rid of my turntable when everybody was dumping theirs. I kept mine and thank God it still works like $1,000,000.
No, dude, exactly. Because, like I said the same story a million times. And the thing about preparing yourself to listen to a vinyl, an album or an album on vinyl, it's like the preparation. You're going to turn the amplifier on, pull out the vinyl, dust it off. Maybe you check out the liner notes, and then you sit down and 21 and a half minutes later on, you get up and flip it over and you're focused right there on listening to the music.
Right. That was the event. That's what you were doing.
That was the event, exactly.
It's like reading a book or watching a TV show.
Yeah.
But it's like nobody's got patience to sit still anymore. I see people all the time, my wife included, watching maybe a TV show or flipping through a magazine, but also doing this on the phone.
I can't deal with it.
Can't deal with it. I have to have my time, which I do every day. I take a little music time, and that's all I'm doing. I'm just focused on the
Amen.
music. I'm not looking at anything else other than I do still like to read the liner notes or look at whatever pictures were included. And I'm geeky. I like to know where it was recorded because I'm into that, kind of stuff too. And
yeah, of course. Of course. It's like, So these days you might even have sometimes to fake something and say, when you've recorded the album at home, you just go, no, it was recorded, at the foot of Mount Everest.
Right. Well, anyway, all right, Mike. Well, great having you here.
Thank you, Ralph.
Guys, visit MikeTrampOfficial.com and you'll see his tour dates there. For those of you that watch this rather than just listen to it, you will see I'll have a slide with some of the upcoming dates because you're going to be at the Whiskey in Los Angeles in September. Rocklahoma, though, is the next date, August 31st. So you'll see those dates. Otherwise, check out Mike Tramp Official. And also, I'm sure you have a link there if anybody wants to pre-order Songs of White Lion Volume 3. You probably have a link on your website. So check that out. You can pre-order the album now. And then, Mike, what I thought we'd do, since I do have the 2 singles, and I guess maybe that is one more thing we should ask you before we part company, is there going to be one more single released ahead of the album?
Yeah, I mean, today they do them completely different. I think they're actually going to do two more singles, and I'm already working on the concept for one of them, and try to see if I can overdo myself with the video.
All right, nice. I won't make you say what it is. We'll wait for the surprise. But
it'll be a surprise.
But what I thought we'd do now, though, is play the 2 that have been released.
Sure.
So guys, we've been talking with Mike Tramp, formerly of White Lion, now all on his own. You made me up dropping like that last time you were here 5 years ago. But revisiting White Lion, Songs of White Lion, Songs of White Lion Volume 2, and now Volume 3 about to come out September 19th. Again, check out Mike Tramp Official. We'll go back to the modern world, even though we were just talking about how much we love the old way too. But check that out. Go check out White Lion or Mike Tramp doing the White Lion material live. And if you haven't watched the video yet, I posted a link for it on our social media. But if you haven't watched the video yet for Fight to Survive, go check that out. But not right now. Stick around right now. And I think we'll just do the 2 singles in the order they came out.
I appreciate it, man.
So coming up now, you're going to hear Cherokee from the new Songs of White Lion Volume 3, and then we'll follow that up with Fight to Survive. And again, Mike, pleasure having you here. Thanks for taking some time for Radio
Thanks, Ralph.
Bypass.
Thank you, buddy.
My pleasure.
See you out there. Take care.
come to win the fight for their freedom, for their right. Whoa, Cherokee, running free, you ride into the sky, where your spirit lives forever. Cherokee, running free, you ride into the sky, where your freedom lives forever. The fire burns tonight. We all recall the fight where blood was shed without a reason. 200 years have passed since he stood ashore and raised your land down to the core. Cherokee, running free, you ride into the sky, where your spirit lives forever. Cherokee, running free, you ride into the sky, where your spirit lives forever. Cherokee, running free, you ride into the sky, where your freedom lasts forever. And it all began the day that it was born. The boy looks up, the sky is blue, the sun's so warm. Yeah, time's been, that's a number, the young ones on the loose. And the clock keeps turning, time starts spinning fast, cooling off this burning fire through the soul. It brings on hope, fight for survival. His thoughts are frantic and the seams is falling down. He feels the emptiness that pulls him towards the ground. Bring up your shield, raise high your sword, fight to survive. Run, flee for your life, look towards the sun, fight to survive. As you walk along the shore, your thoughts run by. The questions are your empty thoughts stored deep inside, and you feel like thunder, it sends you on the loose. As time keeps turning, life fly by fast, and you feel you're growing tired. You say no towards the sun, fight for survival.